Welcome back, baseball fans, to the wrap-up of the 1969-72 Summer League. The New York Mets defeat the Detroit Tigers 4-1 to win the World Series. And normally I consider it to be the first of the 4 years, which would be 69, which would make sense since the 69 Mets did win the World Series. You have 8 of the 20 players from that roster. So it is the New York Mets finishing with 33 wins for the season. None of the other teams made the playoffs. The Reds got, of course, knocked out in the divisional round in shocking form. That certainly did aid the Mets. Pittsburgh had a disappointing season, didn't even make the playoffs with a losing record. These teams, nothing really shined, of course, in the Mountain Division. One team goes to the playoffs every year, and it was Las Vegas. Dodgers have not had a chance against the Mets and the Reds. They're 1-10 in the last 2 postseasons against the Mets and the Reds. Giants fought valiantly, could not overcome their defense and their bullpen. Finished 31-24, technically with a better record because they played more playoff baseball. And then the American League West, the A's disappointed. Even going into the playoffs, they still could not overcome the Angels overall. The Royals overcome the Twins here. And here are your Detroit Tigers. And look at the quantity of baseball they're playing. So we know about this division was below 500. And the Tigers were 2 games under 500 at the end of the regular season. And with all of that baseball they played in the postseason tournament and in the playoffs, they managed only to gain a net of +3 games because everything was very tight for the Tigers. But 59 baseball games, and I believe this is the first 30-win team I've had that has lost that many games. A 29-loss team and a 30-win. 59 baseball games for the Tigers, while all these other teams were playing 37, 36, 33 games. So they were starved for attention with the Tigers. They just like playing baseball, win or lose. Just let us keep playing. Let us keep playing. And the defending champion Orioles lost, where they won 14 fewer games. Boston was the best team in the American League, 28-14. When we look at the overall batting averages, Yankees and the Reds, and you'll notice that the 2 World Series teams, here are the Mets and Tigers right next to each other, hitting 253, 254. Actually, both hitting 253, excuse me. So it's kind of exciting to see that, your team is just not simply picking up all the great sluggers and just walking away with it. Look at the home runs the Tigers hit. That's a lot of home runs, but again, they played a lot of games. 29 stolen bases for the Mets. A lot of that's Bud Harrelson. The Detroit Tigers in 59 baseball games said, we're fine at first base. And then when you go over to the ERA column, there it is. Boston's ERA is 2.67. But they led the league in unearned runs. So who knows if this team ERA would have been like 3.50 or 4 if those unearned runs that scored were earned runs. And there's the Mets, 327. Notice that the whip is the best. Better indicator than ERA there. Putting guys on base. Interesting Milwaukee team here that has a nice pitching staff, though they were on a last place team, but they were 500. And there's the Tigers hanging back with the Mets. So you're talking about the 3rd and 5th best ERAs. And what we just saw demonstrated in that World Series was 6 quality long starters. Joe Coleman, Mickey Lolich, Denny McLain, John Matlack, Tom Seaver, and Jerry Koosman. We'll do final stats for the Tigers and Mets in elimination videos for both teams. Really quickly, though, overall, best ERAs in each league were mostly relievers who didn't qualify for innings pitched. So you're going to have a bunch of relievers who have ERAs under 1. As far as the starting pitchers here, Roger Moret had a .177 ERA. We saw him. It's one of those great Boston starters who had a ridiculously low ERA. There's Tiant right there. And you also have Bill Singer, of course, who won the Cy Young. Over the National League, again, you have the relievers. Ramon Hernandez, 47 cents. Didn't help the Pirates enough. Great year for Ramon, but the Pirates finished below 500. How about Cy Acosta? He got a win in one of those World Series games when the Mets came back in the ninth. So he actually pitched better than Tug McGraw. .04 ERA. And then as far as starting pitchers, Jerry Johnson in a reduced role. There's Matt Lack winning your Rookie of the Year. Tug McGraw, .87, 10 saves, winning Game 5 of the World Series. Clay Carroll's ERA was 0 until he gave up a walk-off grand slam to Willie Mays in the National League Championship Series, or Divisional Series, and that took his ERA from 0 to 2.37. And Marichel's in here somewhere as your Cy Young winner. 150 and 2/3 innings for Juan Marichel, 13-4, 287. I wonder if we can find Joe Coleman over here as a comparison. He should be right there. He is 138 and 2/3, 11-5. But he could have easily had a 12th and 13th win if the Tigers would have held on in the 9th inning of those 2 games, and we'd still be playing right now. We could have had a Game 7 with Joe Coleman. So, and then the batters in the American League, Carew does finish over 400. Unfortunately, he didn't get the MVP, and the guy who got the MVP kind of slumped as we scroll down. It's Gene Tennis, because he had the 17 homer and 42 RBI. Now, the only guy to pass him would be this guy, Willie Horton. But you got to remember, Willie Horton played 59 games. His team just went deeper into the playoffs. Tennis got knocked out in the... actually, Horton only played one more series because Gene Tennis and Oakland lost to Boston in the divisional round. So Horton went 2 more series because they knocked out Boston and played the Mets. So you got extra participation for Willie Horton, and those numbers are kind of 226 at-bats for him. In the National League, you have a small sample size. Jose Ortiz hitting over 400, not qualifying for anything. Manny Mota, 361, with a nice card. Cleon Jones, there it is, bat underneath 200, hit 352. And also awarding the World Series MVP, I give it to Cleon Jones, because frankly, for 5 games, the Mets had a different MVP for every game. You had Tommy A.G. with a walk-off. A.G. hit a walk-off triple in Game 1. Matt Lack pitched well in Game 3. Jerry Grody hit a 2-run homer in the 9th in Game 4. Clendenon had the big tie-breaking homer in Game 5. Tug McGraw had 4 innings of relief work in Game 5. But Cleon Jones in all of those games contributed hits and homers and had the best overall batting average. And he was the consistent thread over all 5 of the games. And the Mets won 4 games while Tom Seaver lost the only games, which is really odd. Next, I want to move to the overall team stats. We'll get to the Tigers and the Mets in separate videos. But for the season total, I played 648 baseball games, and the league ERA was 3.89 with a .40 whip and a league at 259 overall. And that showed that the pitching returned to dominance. Now I can go back to the last 5 years, and when I do that, and you saw the postseasons in the World Series preview, but when I do the team stats from 2020, one of the things that stands out is number of games played. So you're looking for the highest total possible, because that's, when I play all these games, obviously I'm winning and losing every game I play, so I can't measure how quality the managing is, but the number of games played would indicate how competitive the league structure is. So in 2020, 620 games were played, a 4.20 ERA, a 2.66 batting average, because we still have guys from the 1980s mixed in. So you're pulling from two different talent pools. So you got a much more talented league, but you're playing fewer games, 620. And if I go back to 2019, it's almost the same, 622 games, 422, and a 267 batting average. Pretty similar. In that respect, you're looking at players from the 1980s. The 1980s population is simply going to be bigger because you have two more baseball teams, Seattle and Toronto, and Strat-O-Matic would be printing more extra player cards anyway. So there's more talent to pick and choose from. So in that particular year of 2019, you have 60% of the cards are from the 80s. And then going back to 2018, it's 637 games played. This is because we're losing some population from 1969 and 70. In this particular season, 90% of the cards are from the 80s, and you only have a couple cards from 69. So now your talent pool's shrinking, and the ERA is down to 408, and the batting average is down to 268. But you're playing more competitive baseball, 637 games. Which brings me back 5 years ago, because I dug this up, because I was curious about this, to the year of 2017. And this is really interesting. 650 games played, a couple more than this past season. But what's interesting between this era is that this is the 80s era of 650 games played. Again, in 2021, 648 games, right? Flashback there. But in this era, this was 1981 to 84. Let me flash that postseason too, and I'll go back. So this is the year of the strike, 81. So you have 8 cards from that strike year. What we know about that strike year historically was that postseason was set up between the splitting the first half before the strike and after the strike. And you had the Yankees and Milwaukee trying to decide the East. The Yankees win that. You had Oakland and Kansas City decide the American League West. Oakland wins that. The Yankees beat Oakland and go to the World Series. You've got Montreal and Philadelphia deciding the National League East. Philadelphia wins that. And then you have the Dodgers and Astros deciding the National League West. Dodgers win that. Dodgers beat the Phillies, and you have Yankees and the Dodgers in the World Series. So I don't do any of that in this. I just play it straight up. History will remember that the two best teams in the National League that year were the St. Louis Cardinals and the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds had the best overall record, but they didn't win either first or second half of that season. And the Cardinals had the best record in the East. They didn't win the first or second half. So what's really interesting is that in this league, you had, look at this, an expansion team. Arizona made the Final Four championship series. You have the Yankees, who have this pedigree. A surprising Cleveland team, but you have the Cincinnati Reds, and they won that World Series. So that was fitting, and they beat the New York Yankees. The Reds beat the Yankees in this World Series. What's so fitting about this is that the Reds did have the best overall record in baseball in 1981, and the New York Yankees lost the 1981 World Series. So it really, matched up pretty well. But again, what's interesting about this 650 game season, look how high the ERA was. And this is all 1980s players. These are players from 81 to 84. I understand the population is bigger because you got Seattle and Toronto. But this really reflects a great change in baseball as a hitting era. Because look at the league batting average. The league batting average is 277. These stat numbers average the overall best hitters of each team down to the worst player in each team. So the average best player on each team, the average hit 353 in that year, which is shocking. And when we go back to our 2021 season, it's 341 for the overall at the average best player of each team. This is going to factor in, though, you know, a high number of at-bats. As you can see, the at-bats here. Your second and third is usually going to be more populous, obviously. But that 341 batting average factors in the Rod Carews of the world and the Cleon Joneses and so forth and so on. And then the league ERA 389. So this reflects, frankly, two things. Fewer number of cards, because there's only 24 baseball teams instead of 26. Also, fewer number of extra player cards available, printed by Strat-O-Matic. But also just the way the game is played. In 69 expansion year, it was inflated because you had expansion teams coming in the league, and so hitting was up. But by the time 70, 71, and 72 rolled around, it became kind of a dead ball era again. And there really wasn't, the offense started to decline in certain areas of the league. So that's what we have moving forward, that it's going to take good pitching and a 259 batting average. You're going good pitching is what this carrier league is looking forward to. And that's reflected in the two teams that went to the World Series. Going back to the overall stats again, you had the best pitching staffs with ERAs below 389 are all these teams. And there you have the Tigers at 348 and the Mets at 327, and they only hit 253 and 253. The Orioles will probably be in there. They really slumped too much. They hit 240. That explains that. The Angels have a good pitching staff. Cardinals got to improve their offense, as do the White Sox. And the Giants are there. Actually, they just they just had a tremendous offense, but their bullpen messed them up in a lot of games. With the Rangers and the Brewers, these could be outliers. They could have had fantastic years and played 500 ball or less, and they might not be able to come back next year. Like the Brewers might next year have an ERA over 4 or something, because it's usually a year-to-year proposition based on the players you lose. So that's the end of season review, and we'll have elimination videos, of course, for the Tigers, Mets, and putting away the final 69 cards into their box. At which point I will conclude this season, start working on the off season, take a little break, and resume the fall league by the middle of late September. A fall league that plays its championship around the time of the Super Bowl. Not quite as many days of the week playing Strat-O-Matic, obviously, because I spend more time watching football and things like that. But thanks for everybody for your participation and watching all these videos. And we'll see you soon.